so good from the inside out? Better than your morning would feel without. Waking the worlds up, physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. World peace through individual strength. And feeling better, objectively. How's that even possible? With the help of your own body. And your only no-nonsense podcast through your best feeling network. My name is Herbie. Good morning. This is Pal Go On. It is Thursday, the Truth Hurts Day. We're talking about how you are influential. Good morning. It is time for another Truth Hurts Day on Pal Go On. Good morning. It is Thursday, September 2, 2021. 6:53 a.m. We are having a later start today, but guess what? Things are changing around here. Check it out. We've got full colorful atmosphere. Guess what today is about? Today is about how you are influential. We're going to talk about just random stuff and vapid knowledge. Will that help you feel good about it? No. Of course, on Pal Go On, we're going to use some body magic tricks. Make you feel so good from the inside out. Using our superpower of self-awareness. We'll be right back, you influential being. Good morning, how are you? Wherever you are, whenever thou art. Whatever you guys are doing, are you chilling? Are you hanging out? Are you outside? Are you inside? How are you doing? What are you up to today? How art thou feeling today? How has your sense of self been feeling today out there? There. Out there. Out there. How has it been feeling today? Out there. Have you been able to feel your body today, wherever you are? Why would you want to feel your body? To feel present in the moment, to avoid stress, anxiety, and to feel better overall. How are you doing that today? Have you been remembering that the tip of your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? You want to pretend like it's controlled front there. Like you would think that your tongue is like you would think that it's controlled a certain way, right? Like you would think it's controlled from the back because it's connected there. But did you know the tip of your tongue should actually feel like it's anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? It should actually feel like it's anchored there, like it's controlled there, like the remote control is there, like the freaking like the control panel is at like the back of the bottom incisors, and it's controlling the tongue like a flap back there. And how does that feel for you? Don't take my word for it. How does it feel for you when you think about it that way? Does it maybe free up your breathing a little bit? As the back 1/3 of your tongue is also up and down. Did you know that? The back, and like closer to the swallowing areas, is actually more closely represented up and down in your internal representation in the way that you're thinking about things. So if you're thinking about your tongue being controlled from the front panel like that, does that free up your breathing a little bit? How does that feel for you out there? How does that feel for you out there? If you're thinking about the back 1/3 of your tongue being vertical and the tip of your tongue being anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, how does that feel for you? Again, you want to think of your tongue like being anchored. Like this elbow that you see that I'm putting on the screen, like, as if it's like your elbow, you put it in front of you. Like that's the tip of your tongue. So like the back of your tongue kind of hangs like a flap. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, in the back. The tongue. How does that feel for your energy level? You know what I'm saying? Today we're going to be talking about how you are influential. You are absolutely influential, but why that's a good thing? Why it might even be a bad thing? Why would you not think you're influential? You are indeed influential in the sense that no matter what you do, you are influencing people. No matter what you do. Even if you say that you are nice, but are quote unquote not nice sometimes, you are influential, so you are being seen for all of those things on the Truth Heard stage. You are being seen for the times that you are nice, and you are being seen for the times that you say you're nice, but perhaps don't act nice. You are influential despite what your words say. Your body, the meaning of what you're doing is so influential, even beyond what your words say. You cannot turn it off. You can't turn your influence off. It's such a good thing. It might be scary because you're thinking, oh wow, I'm always being watched and I'm influential. Oh no, what am I gonna do to the world? But let's anchor that tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom front teeth. Let's think about the back 1/3 of the tongue being vertical. Up and down, up and down. And let's think about how you are influential, and that's a freaking good thing. We'll be right back. Stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every morning. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Are we remembering to allow all of these words to enter one ear and then out the other as we're holding on to the meaning and not necessarily the object, the specific words, but using that amazing window to this godlike experience that you are of your self-awareness and your consciousness to establish the pattern and to extract the meaning as opposed to the exact object that is that you're listening to. Put the meanings of what we're talking about, as in, what does it mean to your body to please pretend with me that there is a candle, a lit candle, just a lit candle flickering in front of the lips like this. You're trying to not put it out. You're trying to not put it out as you anchor the tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom incisors and leave those swallowing muscles all the way alone. Don't put the candle. Remember, let the candle rest. When in distress, let the candle rest, as my friend Dom would say. And how does that feel for you? What does it mean to your body to pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out? And leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone. Don't think about breathing in or out. Just focus on the candle that you're trying to not put out and anchor the tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom teeth as you do so. Remember that your tongue is controlled from that front area, from the tip of your tongue. And the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down, up and down. As you leave your swallowing muscles alone. Observe your sense of self, as in the way your body feels, as in your kinesthetic experience that houses the rest of your senses, and how you feel when you wake up off the good side of the bed versus the bad side of the bed. Your sense of self. How your right arm might feel different than your left arm, your sense of self, as you remember that your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom incisors. It's controlled from there, like a, guess what? As the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, like a flap, being controlled from the tip of the tongue, like a control panel existing in the back of the bottom front teeth. Controlling your tongue from the tip as the back of the tongue is 100% vertical up and down. And remember that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out this morning. As you anchor the tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom front teeth. And leave your swallowing muscles alone. How does that feel for you? Today, on the Truth Hurts Day, we talk about how your actions speak louder than words. Right? You are influential. Absolutely influential. And you can't turn that off. No matter what you're doing, you are being watched by the world, by people you love, especially the people you love, as they're always watching you, probably more than we are watching ourselves. So you are very influential, because people are always looking to people to understand the world, to understand how to deal with problems, to understand each other. So maybe it's kind of a scary thing that you are so influential. Maybe that's why we don't want to believe it, but you are influential. No matter what you're doing, you're influential, and you can't turn it off. That can be kind of scary, right? You can't turn it off, the fact that you are influential. People are always watching thee. But that might be a good thing. Why? Well, as you know, we can't convince anybody. But since we are influential in and of ourselves, and people are always watching us, the change can start somewhere with us, as we have confidence that we are so influential. That can be an issue, because sometimes we don't want to be influential. Sometimes you don't want to be influential. Right? Sometimes when we're indulging in things that maybe we're not so proud of as we're trying to overcome suffering in our lives, maybe we don't always want to be influential. That's not so hard to understand. Maybe sometimes we don't want to be influential because sometimes we indulge in things that we indulge in experiences that sometimes we're doing out of anger for not getting what we want somewhere else. But why do we feel angry? Sometimes when we don't get what we want somewhere else, sometimes we feel somewhat responsible for it, but we don't know how to correct it. That seems like an eternal problem. So why not do other things? Why not distract myself for I don't know how long I will live? So do we necessarily want to be influential in those times of weakness? Maybe not, but it's true that we are always influential, and the truth hurts, doesn't it? But we are always influential, but that's a good thing here on Padawan. Why is that a good thing? Meaning all the change that we want to do, that see in the world, starts at the same place every time. There's no mystery. It's so simple. It's with ourselves. But how do we do that when we can't flush ourselves with these bad feelings? Well, you can. Try pretending with me that there is a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And anchor that tip of the tongue. We'll be right back after this break. Yeah, it can be kind of scary. It can be kind of concerning that you might always be being watched. You might always be being influential. Isn't that why it's so scary to have kids? You're thinking, man, this thing is always watching me. This thing's gonna watch my every move, my everything that I do, my everything that I'm ashamed of. But the hardest thing about being ashamed about things is usually the fact that you can't wash it away, right? We feel like we can't wash it away. We can't cleanse ourselves of it, because what happens then? Not only are you annoyed with it, like day to day, but it affects your performance in other things, right? So like you get really annoyed with it because it ends up sapping your energy of other things. And so you feel like you're not necessarily even getting the most out of those things in life. Like you're not performing to your highest ability because you just freaking can't wash out these feelings. Why would it scare us that we're always influential, that we can't turn it off? Well, because sometimes we can't wash away those things that bog us down. We don't want people to see that it's not us at our best. But what if you could, right? What if we could pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out? And remember that the tip of the tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth at all times. Put that candle in front of the lips and let it rest. Remember, try not to put it out. The intention of trying to not put it out is important. And remember where the tongue is anchored from. Ask yourself, where's the tongue anchored from? Aren't we afraid of our own selves, our own anger? Why would we be afraid of our own anger? Aren't we understanding that we push things away and we act like things that we are not when we are angry? And so aren't we afraid of entering ourselves into consequences that us ourselves did not choose, but it was just an angry response? And so now we're in this new situation created from anger, and you didn't necessarily choose to be there. Isn't that why we're afraid of our own anger? Doesn't that piss us off? Because we can't calm down. Doesn't that piss us off? And we're just like, man, I don't want the situation to go the way it is, but I can't calm myself down. Isn't that true? Aren't we afraid of our own anger? Aren't we afraid of our own anger? The situations it lands you in, accidentally saying the wrong thing to the girl or saying the wrong thing to the waiter, and you're just angry, and now you're in this new situation due to an action that you didn't feel like you necessarily manifested on your own, but was a result of feeling trapped, right? How do we feel untrapped so that we don't feel scared of our own anger and the situations that it might trap us in? Well, we have to be able to physically and mentally order ourselves. Mentally first, because how do you mentally order yourself? By knowing that you are a flawed but perfect human being at the same time. You are a human being that's always in motion. Its flaws is what keeps you in motion, and that is beautiful. We need forgiveness to continue moving forward as a human being, and that's beautiful. And you are this amazing window to this godlike experience that you are. Constantly observing, constantly extracting and creating meaning from all sorts of things that seem unrelated to you. You are an amazing being that deserves all that credit and deserves all that forgiveness. And forgiveness and the ability to forgive yourself. Mentally ordering exactly what you are in the world, mentally ordering your worldview of what a human being is. And then, of course, physically ordering yourself, as in your self-awareness of your internal representation of your body, of how it's supposed to breathe, so that you can breathe properly, so you can feel as good as you know you are, as this amazing human being that you are. You want to be able to feel that and confirm that, to feel as good as you know that a human being can do, and that you know as a human being is. You want to be able to confirm that physically and mentally. You want to be able to order yourself physically and spiritually and mentally and spiritually. And how do we order ourselves mentally? Well, you remind yourself of what you are in the world. This flawed but amazing human being. Flawed but perfect individual. You acknowledge what a human being is, this worldview, and then how do you order yourself physically now? Well, my friend, you pretend with me that there's a candle that you're trying to not put out. Ooh. It's just flickering there in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone as you do so. Always remembering that the tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. If you put your elbows up to your chin, tip of your tongue should feel kind of like that elbow. And that it's anchored there. And the back of your tongue flaps but vertically, like your hand would be. Up and down, up and down, up and down. The back of 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. The same way you would say humans are meant to be forgiven. Humans are meant to forgive. It's the same way as saying the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. By saying that humans always get older by days, but don't get old in one day. By describing that nature of the human being, that is like saying that the tip of your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And as we know, time runs one way. Something that we acknowledge about nature. Time runs one way. Would be like the same thing as saying that you engage the swallowing muscles while you breathe. Saying time runs one way would be like saying that you should leave your swallowing muscles alone while you breathe. These are truisms of the body that need to be ordered to be able to understand the world that you're experiencing. Imagine if you thought about time being able to run many ways. That the experience you are having is going backwards, forward, up, down, spiral, in and out, outside, in, all at the same time. Imagine if time was happening like that, or that we were perceiving time that way. We wouldn't be able to make it to our meetings on time. Maybe Pal Gowan would be on time for once. But time runs one way, and we know that. The same way that we know that we should leave the swallowing muscles alone as you do so. As you breathe. As you pretend that there's a candle for the lips. So you are influential. Not just to other people, but to yourself, right? You can influence where the weight of your body is going down. As in, you could choose for it to be in that back of the spine, the incorrect portion, or you could choose it to be in the front of the spine, that blue portion, and allow your weight to be delivered separately into those rainbow arches, and then into those sit bones, which are part of your pelvic bone. Your pelvis and not your legs, as your legs are free to float. Are you aware? So you are influential, so sometimes that could be scary. You're like, I don't always want to be influential. I don't always want to be being watched when I'm stealing popcorn kernels. But the good thing is that those times where you're like, man, nobody listens to me. Well, there is one way to make sure they listen to you. As in, you always know where to go. Yourself, because they might not listen to you, but people are always looking at each other. We might not listen to each other, but people are always observing each other, and that's why we are always influential to one another. So we might not be listening to what you're saying, because isn't that something in and of itself? Does that mean you're trying to convince somebody of something as opposed to living it for yourself? The consequences of being influential could be scary, as you can't turn it off, right? You're always being watched. But isn't that kind of convenient? Because should you want any change in your life, isn't the change always going to start at the same exact place at the same time? Isn't that reliable to find it at the same spot, like finding dishwasher soap always stocked up where you want it to? Isn't the consequences of being always influential is that it's so easy to begin the change as you know where to start every time. As in, every time. You want to start the world feeling good? Where you start yourself every time. And how do we do that? Because we're so influential, we want to make everyone else feel good around us. Well, how do we do that? Well, you remember to place a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. We are so influential that no matter what you're doing, even if your awareness is on good breathing, guess what you are going to influence people to do? Guess! even without them knowing. As we are so influential and everybody's looking for somebody who breathes well, low-key copy them using some mirror neuron magic just to be around them. Contact high. I can't think of a joke. We'll be right back. Be the change in the world, they say. Are we pretending there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out? And leave the swallowing muscles alone, and remember where the tip of your tongue is anchored to. Balance in the world. They say we want balance in the world, right? They say we want balance in the world. But we are so influential. How do you want balance in the world? We balance ourselves and we influence the world because we are just so influential, period. Sometimes it's hard to feel the consequences of our influence, right? We feel like nobody's listening. Well, isn't that because you can't hold the two truths? You can't hold the two truths at the same time. The following: that people are amazing. And then in the other hand, also hold the idea that you have no confidence in yourself. Or that you feel like somebody is better than you. Anybody. Or that anybody deserves special treatment or free handouts. We cannot hold the two truths at the same time. Or if you try, people will see right through it. You cannot have low self-confidence in yourself and simultaneously believe the best in other people, because we are all one and the same. You are so influential that a conflict of logic like that, the inner conflict that sprouts within people who have low confidence in themselves but view people highly, the conflict cannot be held. It cannot hold water. Because we are all these amazing human beings. The same dignity, the same situation on this rock, born into a situation they didn't choose, hurling towards a death that is certain, and having to try to deal with suffering on the way, and just looking for ways to deal with suffering. Looking for ways to understand how to deal with suffering as it comes by, as the only thing consistent in life is uncertainty. The only thing certain in life is suffering. Even as the baby comes out, the first thing that the baby does to even admit the idea that it's alive is suffering, is crying. Life is suffering. For us to associate suffering with a bad thing was our human emotions, and fear for suffering itself is one of the necessary components of life, as it tells you where to rebalance. It tells you where you should rebalance to continue moving forward, the same way we rebalance a wheel for a car, or we rotate wheels on a car. The same way that the tires for a car must constantly, the same way that a bike stays up straight by constantly rolling forward to avoid, to rebalance for the imbalances that an upright wheel would do, that an upright wheel would have. It rolls forward, and that forward motion is what ends up balancing this amazing act of this wheel freaking going upright, staying upright, somehow being balanced against the imbalances. How do we go about making sure that when we are influential, blah, 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 you are so influential? How do we make sure that people are actually, how do we make sure that we're using that properly? It's so scary, right? It's so scary, right? Because in times when we can't breathe properly, or times that we're feeling angry, don't we do things that end us up in situations that we're not necessarily proud of? So it can be scary. But it always means that it's always in your control, as in, what can you do? Since you are so influential, you can begin by ordering thyself mentally, physically, again. You know just what to do. We balance ourselves to see what we want to see in the world, to feel better, as we are pretending that there's a candle in front of us that you're trying to not put out. Wherever you are, whenever thou art. And leave those swallowing muscles all the way alone as you do so. Remembering always to anchor the tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom front teeth. And leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. As we're remembering that the pain, the suffering in life, the imbalances of life is what allows us to move forward at all. As we see how to correct those imbalances. As we see ways to correct those imbalances, we see that suffering is not necessarily a bad thing in life. Although we are trying to hide ourselves when we start to suffer because we know we are so influential, the suffering in life is not such a bad thing, for it is showing us where to rebalance. Why would we want to stay balanced? So that we can achieve freedom in the way that a tire achieves freedom through balance. By correcting for the wheel's imbalances, the wheel is able to maintain its upright and rolling nature. How would we know where to balance if not for the imbalances? If not for the suffering, how would we know where to reduce the suffering to allow us to continue towards more freedom? And isn't there suffering both mentally, spiritually, physically, and then mentally? Isn't there both suffering physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again? In any situation, you could be focused on the suffering of the physical situation. You could be focused on, like, for example, in a situation, in an uncomfortable public speaking situation, many people will feel physically uncomfortable. Their guts might feel physically uncomfortable, physically imbalanced, out of order. So there could be suffering physically, which also is separate, but also not so separate from the idea of them suffering mentally. Because why is that happening? Well, they're on stage. They understand they're on stage. They understand the physical and mental and spiritual consequences of being on stage and messing up. They're thinking about all these, they're overthinking. Be suffering there. Be suffering spiritually by thinking that this whole moment is going to result in some disastrous effect that will make them feel as though they are not worth it for the rest of their lives. Be suffering in all of those scopes. And so we can be rebalanced in all of those scopes to reach freedom in all of those scopes. And aren't all of those scopes separate, but at the same time interdependent? The same way that you are one person in this 7.2 billion world of people. You're one individual, but at the same time, that 7.2 billion people in the world is composed and necessarily relies on individuals just like you to even be itself. To even be that 7.2 population, it is necessarily including you. Otherwise, that population is not the same population. There is a hole in society, the shape of your soul, when you are not performing to your best balance, towards your most authentic personality, our most authentic being. When we compromise ourselves, don't we weaken ourselves, and don't we put a hole in society, the shape of our soul? And so just like the body of people in the world is composed of all these individual parts that compose that entire body, defines that body. Our same body does the same thing. The same way that your left arm is a separate entity from your entire arm or from your entire body. It can feel like a separate entity if you wish. Your self-awareness can do that. But at the same time, your self-awareness can be brought to the idea that your entire body has an arm. Your body is an entire body composed of multiple parts, but it is one whole body. But at the same time, you can also think of your arm being a separate part of the body, not part of the body, like raising your hand in the classroom, for example. You can stretch your self-awareness like that. Same way your body does. We will be right back. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Are we remembering to allow all of these words to go in one ear and then out the other, as we are attaching to the meaning, not necessarily the objects of the words. Let's detach ourselves from being attached to objects and think about the meanings. The meanings underneath it all. Underneath it all. You are influential, which might be an issue, which might be kind of concerning, as we are always being faced with suffering here and there throughout life. And we don't always like the way that we deal with it. Do we always want to be influential? Do we always want to be being seen as the way that we are choosing to fix the balances in our lives? Well, perhaps, as all you want in the world is to feel better, and what you're wanting is for your life to feel better. But as you know, you are all there is. So where should we start when we want the world to feel better? Well, when we're fixing these imbalances, let's feel better as we're imbalancing, so that the fact that we're influential doesn't destroy us, because there's nothing we can do about it. The same way that time runs one way, you are influential. The same way that all beings get older over time, you are influential. The same way that nobody gets old in one day, you are influential. The same way that all beings have gender, you are influential. The same way that the tip of your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth and is controlled from there, you are influential. Which can be scary, because we are always dealing with suffering and imbalances in our lives, and we're not always proud of the ways that we deal with that suffering and imbalances in our lives. But the same way time runs one way, you are influential. How can we go about making that a good thing, as we always do on Pow Go On? How do we do that? Will we deal with those imbalances in a perfect way? How do we mean that we're doing it in a perfect way? Well, as you know that you are all there is, we focus on you and the body, making yourself feel good and think good, so that we do good for ourselves. And why might you want to do good for yourself? Well, because don't you want good for yourself? And as we know, actions speak louder than words. You are influential, so if you want to influence the world to make your life good, you must first start by feeling good, and that influences the world. We might want to shy away from dealing with our imbalances and confronting our suffering head on, as we sometimes are not proud of the ways that we deal with it. But the act of rebalancing itself is what people love, is what gathers people, is what connects people, is what allows people to latch onto something to relate to, is the way we deal with this suffering. So you hide the way you deal with those imbalances, you hide yourself, you hide your ability to get good for your own life, as the good that we know is to rebalance. Why do we know that it's good to rebalance? Well, for us to achieve freedom in life, don't we must rebalance, the same way that a wheel, to achieve freedom in its rolling, to go to wherever it wants to go, or freedom must to deal with rebalancing itself at all times. And isn't that the currency? Isn't that what we're looking for? Isn't that what gathers people? Don't just take my word for it, as we are allowing the words to go in one ear and out the other, but how do you feel about that? The way we deal with imbalance. The way we deal with imbalance, as that is one thing that we all have in common, is that we will see imbalance. We will experience suffering. We will experience hardship. So how we deal with that hardship, if we hide ourselves and refuse the idea that we are influential, or are afraid of that idea, don't we turn that into a bad thing? How do we make it a good thing that you are so influential? Well, we deal with our imbalances knowing that we are so influential, and deal with it without shame, so that people can use it because they know that we are influential. But we are so influential that should we have shame with dealing with these imbalances, aren't we already influencing people to have shame in the way that they're dealing with us as we deal with their imbalances, as we are that influential? should we feel shame in the way that we deal with our suffering? Aren't we so influential that we're already telling the world how to feel about the way we deal with that suffering? So, how do we make it a good thing that you are influential? Well, it starts with you, right? All changes you want to see in your life, it's so easy. It starts with you, right? Where else must you go? You. Let's order you. Let's change the way your self-awareness is for you. You want to go future places in your life, must start with you. And that's a good thing, because you always know where to start. It's always you. How do we get the boons from life? We use our influentiality that we know that we have and make it a good thing. As yes, it's true. You are influential. Yes, it's true. You are influential. Which means that the way you deal with suffering and the fact that you or rather the fact that you have suffering is a truism. And you are so influential, yes, so people can see the suffering, but what they want to see is the way we deal with suffering. That's what we look for in life, the way to deal with conflict. You don't know what kind of conflict some people will have. Everybody will have a different conflict. However, what everyone has in common is the drive to overcome that conflict. And as you know, we're always looking at meaning, so we're able to extract the way one person deals with conflict and be able to establish it somewhere else, be able to see patterns somewhere else. You are so influential, and that's a dang good thing. Meaning everything you do is influencing the world around you. Should you not have shame about it? So people, because you are so influential, even the way you look at what you're doing will tell people how to look at what you're doing. You are so influential. So scary, right? So much responsibility. But at the same time, no mystery. Not mysterious. Directly to the point. Very ordered. We know where the influence comes from. It comes from you, baby. So how do you get more of what you want in your life? Well, you begin by feeling good. And why do you begin by feeling good? Because when you feel good, you think good. And when you think good, you do good. And you are so influential. So should you feel good, are you not influencing other people to feel good? And is that not the biggest good of all? Feeling good. It's so good that we allow ourselves to trick ourselves into thinking that other things that feel good right now are better than a feel good that we can see in the future. This feel good is such high currency because our bodies don't necessarily know that we are going to survive 1 second to the next, 1 minute to the next, 1 minute to the next, 1 minute to the next. Our body might not necessarily know that, though our brains might be safe in these walls or outside you might feel safe. Your body only knows this moment, so it technically doesn't know about the next moment. So the feel good is such the highest currency for life. So when you make, there's no wonder why food itself is so valid. It's so community bringing, community giving, because feeling good in the moment is the highest currency. Socially, for yourself, everything. Now we know that there are better ways to feel good in the long run, which is why we have these disciplines and why we learn about how to discipline ourselves. But feeling good is the highest currency, which we know, our bodies know. Because we don't necessarily know if we're going to survive next minute on the Truth Hurts Day. But you are so influential. So should you want to get what you want in life, there's only one place to look, which is fantastic. No mystery. On the Truth Hurts Days, you are so influential. So you know just what to do. You want more freedom in your life. Balance thyself. Physically, spiritually, mentally. As your actions always speak louder than words, and that's a good thing. You don't even need to go out and convince people you want this, you want that, you want to see this, you want to see that. Simply acting on those ideas. Learning how to balance yourself physically by remembering the candle, or remembering natures about humans, like you are meant to be forgiven and to forgive, and that no being gets older in a day, and that having needs food needs, water needs, breathing needs, sexual needs is 100% normal and nothing to be ashamed of. And knowing that you are so influential. Ordering our worldview of human beings by knowing that you are so influential. So the way that you view your own needs is so influential that will tell people how to view your needs. The way you view your needs, whether that be with shame or without shame, with anger or without anger, or happiness or without happiness, you are so influential. You influence the world on how to view your needs based on how you feel about your needs first. So how do you influence the world to feel better about your needs because you have your needs? Well, you feel better while you're thinking about your needs. And how do you feel better when you're thinking about your needs? Well, of course. You please pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so, as you were thinking about how the tongue is anchored to the tip of the back of the bottom. The tip of the tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. As you were leaving your swallowing muscles alone. Your needs are not a bad thing. Everybody has needs. There's no reason to feel ashamed about the needs, as we sometimes can do. But we are so influential that the way that we feel about our needs, literally the way our body feels when it thinks about our needs. You know how you sometimes get butterflies in your stomach when you think about certain uncomfortable things? Literally the way your body feels is going to influence how people feel about and think about and go about doing about your needs. Because we are so influential that even the way your body feels when thinking about certain things will alert people to how to feel about those subjects already. We are so influential that the way we feel, even when thinking about uncomfortable situations, will alert the world to how to react to what you're about to say, to how to react to your needs. But that's a good thing. Why is that a good thing? Well, because the fix is always in the same spot. It's always in the body. Because when you feel good about what you're thinking about, aren't you emitting the idea that the world should feel good about what you're thinking about as well? So if we could feel good talking about the uncomfortable things, could we not shift the way the world views us and our uncomfortable things, our uncomfortable needs, sometimes as they are? Thank you for joining us for another Truth Hurts Day. Maybe this one didn't hurt as much as other days. Wherever you are, whenever thou art, I want to thank you so much for coming through. Are you remembering that the front of the weight of the body is delivered down the front of the spine? The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Say it with me. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. I'll see you tomorrow for a Freedom Fridays. You absolutely influential creature, you. But until then, please pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone as you do so. And remember that the tip of your tongue is anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Like an elbow. And the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down, as you leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone. And don't put out that candle. Remember to let that candle rest in front of the lips. You influential creature, you. Remember to observe your sense of self. You are this absolutely influential creature, which can be a scary thing. Because we all have suffering and imbalances in our lives that we are trying to deal with, and sometimes we're not happy about the way we're dealing with it. And the way that you feel about your own needs, because you are so influential, already tells people how to feel about your needs. Which can be a bad thing because it's scary and you feel like crap about your needs. But it could be a good thing because what if you felt good about your needs? Because when you feel good, you think good. And when you think good, you do good. You influential being. We'll be back tomorrow. My name is Herbie the Padawan.